You didn't heal. You just got better at pretending. Better at staying busy enough to avoid the silence. Better at smiling through the ache. Better at convincing everyone, including yourself, that you've moved on. But deep down, there's still something unfinished. Something numb. Something you avoid looking at because it hurts to admit. The healing you claim was really just hiding, dressed in productivity, distraction, and false strength. And no one ever taught you the difference. There comes a point where you no longer cry in public, not because the pain has lessened, but because you've trained yourself to conceal it. You smile, you function, you show up. People even call you strong. And maybe you start to believe it too, that you're finally okay, finally healed. But late at night, when the world goes quiet and the distractions wear off, that ache still finds its way back. You feel it in the silence, in the way you can't relax, in the exhaustion that rest doesn't fix. The truth is, we've confused coping with healing. We think moving forward means moving on. We celebrate resilience without asking what it cost. We mistake silence for peace. We think productivity means we're better, but all we've really done is push the pain underground. It starts subtly. You stop talking about what hurt you. Not because you've made peace with it, but because you're tired of repeating the same story. You stop crying, not because you don't feel anymore, but because the tears never changed anything. You stop reaching out, not because you've stopped needing people, but because disappointment trained you not to. So you build your life like armor. You fill your calendar. You stay productive. You follow goals, routines, and checklists. And from the outside, it looks like growth. But inside, it's just noise. Just a distraction from the version of you still curled up in the corner asking, when do I get to rest? We praise ourselves for adapting. We post quotes about strength and endurance and rising above. But adapting is not the same as healing. Healing is not about appearing whole. It's about facing what made you feel broken. It's not about learning how to fake joy better. It's about being honest enough to say, I'm still carrying this. I've just been taught to carry it silently. Before you judge yourself for not healing the right way, pause. The truth is, you were never given a safe place to heal. You were pushed into survival. Life didn't ask how you felt. It demanded that you adapt. And so you did. You adjusted to the absence of comfort, to the emotional coldness of those who were supposed to protect you. You trained yourself to be invisible when being seen felt dangerous. You became careful with your joy, strategic with your truth. And over time, pretending became muscle memory. You didn't choose this because you were weak. You chose it because you were smart. Because your nervous system decided survival was more important than honesty. You learned that being too emotional made people uncomfortable, that needing too much would make them leave. So you trained yourself to be low maintenance, to not ask for anything, to meet everyone else's needs and ignore your own. You became the dependable one, the peacemaker, the strong friend. Not because you felt strong, but because breaking down was never an option. You didn't have room to collapse, so you didn't. You didn't have time to fall apart, so you kept it together. And the world applauded you for it. They praised your independence, admired your emotional control, called you resilient. But they never saw what it cost you, to become the version of yourself that could be admired but not truly known. That's what hurt children grow into. High-functioning adults with wounded hearts. Adults who don't trust easily, who don't cry around people, who find it hard to rest without guilt, who confuse overthinking with preparation and burnout with achievement. You kept moving not because you healed, but because stopping felt like death. You stayed busy because being still made the pain louder. You learned how to smile and talk and joke, all while quietly fading inside. And that's not healing. That's survival dressed up in discipline. And the saddest part? It works. For a while, survival makes you feel safe. Until it starts to cost you things you can't afford. Connection, softness, joy, the ability to actually be present. Survival teaches you to avoid pain, but healing teaches you to face it without abandoning yourself in the process. One is reactive, the other is intentional. And now you're here. At the place where you finally have to ask, am I still surviving? Or am I ready to actually heal? There's a strange kind of pain that comes from being the person everyone assumes is fine. You show up, you smile, you function, and that's enough for people to believe you're okay. No one looks closer. No one asks twice. Because you've mastered the art of seeming stable. And eventually you start believing it too. You convince yourself that silence means progress, that no longer crying means strength, that carrying your pain well is the same as no longer feeling it. But that's the lie. That's the trap. And the longer you live in it, the heavier it gets. You give incredible advice. You're the one they all turn to when their lives fall apart. You listen. You hold space. You tell them the things you wish someone would tell you. And then you go home to your own quiet room and sit with the ache that never quite leaves. The version of you that gives so much care never gets any in return. Not because people are cruel, but because they forget you need it too. They forget the helper also bleeds. That the strong one can be shattering silently. This is what no one warns you about. Looking healed means people stop checking in. They stop asking if you're okay. They stop offering softness because they think you don't need it. And the longer that goes on, the easier it is to forget your own needs. You start minimizing your feelings. You start telling yourself it's not that bad. You start comparing your pain to others and convincing yourself you should be grateful. You perform wellness while privately suffocating. And when you finally break and when the weight becomes too much, people look at you like they've never seen you before. They say you've changed, that something's wrong, that you're overreacting, because they were never prepared to meet the parts of you you'd always hidden to protect them. That's the cost of looking healed. You lose your right to fall apart. You lose access to comfort. You lose the benefit of the doubt. But maybe breaking is not failure. Maybe it's the first honest thing you've done in years. Maybe this is where healing begins. Not with looking okay, but with being real. And yes, you may lose people who only loved your strength, but you'll gain something far more important. The chance to love yourself without needing to look like you've already arrived. Healing doesn't start when life gets easier. It starts when the pretending stops. Not when you finally master calmness or achieve some enlightened state of peace, but when you sit in the middle of your storm and whisper the truth. I am not okay, and I'm tired of acting like I am. That's the moment it begins. Not with perfection, not with performance, but with honesty. With the quiet courage it takes to drop the mask you've worn for years, the one that made everyone else comfortable while suffocating you. Pretending is exhausting. You wake up already bracing yourself for the day, ready to put on the version of you that the world expects. The composed one, the rational one, the emotionally stable one. But inside, there's a quiet ache, a buried cry, a question you keep pushing away. When do I get to be real? The world has conditioned you to believe that being real is too much, that softness is a liability, that pain is weakness. So you shrink, you self-edit, you withhold. And every time you do, you abandon the most human parts of you in the name of being healed. But healing isn't about filtering your feelings. It's about finally feeling them, fully, without flinching. It's about creating space for the sadness that doesn't have a clear reason, for the anger you were taught to suppress, for the grief you've been carrying for versions of yourself you had to let die just to survive. It's about witnessing all of it, not fixing it, not explaining it, just allowing it to exist. That's where the shift happens. When you stop asking, how do I fix this version of me? And start asking, what does this version of me need? Maybe it needs rest. Maybe it needs honesty. Maybe it just needs someone, even if that someone is you, to say, you don't have to keep holding it all together. And yes, the moment you stop pretending, things will shake. Some relationships might fall apart. Some people might not understand, but that's okay. Healing requires dismantling the life you built while you were hurting. It requires letting go of the masks you wore to survive. It requires grieving the version of you that learned to disappear, just to be loved. And once the pretending ends, the real you, raw, soft, messy, alive, finally gets a chance to breathe. Real healing doesn't look like what most people imagine. It's not a beautiful, linear process where each day gets brighter and every step feels empowering. It's not Instagrammable or inspirational all the time. Real healing is gritty. It's clumsy. It asks waking up on a random Tuesday feeling like you are back at square one and learning not to panic about it. It's crying over something small and realizing it's not about what just happened, but about everything that's been left unspoken for years. It's having a good day and feeling guilty about it, because a part of you is still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Healing doesn't mean you stop hurting. It means you stop running from the hurt. It means you learn how to sit with your sadness without needing to numb it. You learn how to feel anger without turning it against yourself. You learn how to grieve things that didn't have closure, and probably never will. Real healing doesn't mean your triggers disappear. It means you respond with understanding instead of shame. It means instead of spiraling, you pause. You breathe. You recognize the pattern, and you offer yourself compassion instead of criticism. Healing isn't always visible. No one claps for the moment you choose not to send that text. No one sees the quiet win when you choose rest over proving your worth again. There's no applause when you finally say no. Not because you're angry, but because you respect your own capacity. But those are the milestones. Those are the moments where you reclaim pieces of yourself. Not loudly, not publicly, but powerfully. And it's important to say this too. Healing is not becoming someone new. It's becoming someone true. The version of you who exists beneath the people-pleasing, the overachieving, the numbing, the self-sacrifice. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. And wholeness includes the parts of you that are still learning, still scared, still raw. There will be days when you question your progress, days when you feel like nothing's changing. But healing doesn't always feel like transformation. Sometimes it feels like endurance, like staying, like not running from yourself when it would be easier to distract, detach, or disappear. And that's brave. That's real. That's what healing actually looks like. Healing leads you back to the place you never thought you'd return. Yourself. Not the version that adapted to fit everyone's expectations. Not the version that stayed quiet to keep the peace. But the one beneath all of that. The you that was always there, waiting. The real you. The one who knows how to feel deeply, who questions things, who needs rest, softness, truth. The one who got buried under performance, perfection, and survival. There's a quiet power in coming home to that version. A power that doesn't need to shout or prove or convince anyone of anything. It simply exists. Calm, certain, whole. And with it comes a shift. You stop chasing love that hurts. You stop apologizing for your emotions. You stop abandoning yourself just to make someone else stay. You start honoring your energy. You start trusting your intuition. You start choosing yourself, not as an act of defiance, but as an act of remembering. Because the truth is, you were never too much. You were never broken. You were never hard to love. You were simply living in a world that didn't know what to do with your softness. And now, you no longer need to mold yourself to fit into spaces that feel hollow. You've learned the difference between peace and silence, between love and obligation, between staying and self-betrayal. And you choose differently now, not because you're bitter, but because you're awake. There will be moments when the old patterns whisper again, when you're tempted to shrink, to hide, to make yourself easy and small. But now you know better. Now you have language for your wounds. Now you have compassion for your younger self, and boundaries to protect your current one. You'll still have bad days. You'll still feel the sting of old habits, but you'll face them with clarity, not shame. This is the quiet power of being real. You stop performing. You stop earning your worth. You stop needing validation from places that once fed your emptiness, and instead, you become the safe place you always needed. You build a life that doesn't require you to leave parts of yourself behind. And slowly, softly, you return. Not as someone new, but as someone whole. You're not healing to become someone impressive. You're healing to become someone honest. And from that place, you don't just survive anymore. You live. Fully. Freely. Finally.